Hi everyone, it's Dr. Rami and welcome back to the ever-growing Glossary series on terms relevant to narcissism and understanding narcissistic relationships. This series was born out of the fact that many people are often not clear on some of the terms used in the blogs and the articles and the videos on narcissism. And I thought, well, let's just create one place to really generate a lot of clarity about these terms. Today, we're going to take on the term estrangement. But before I go on, I ask please hit the subscribe button. Please join us and subscribe to this channel because there's tons of content here on narcissism. Hit that bell, you'll get notifications each time we post a new video. So let's talk about estrangement. If you come from a family with narcissistic dynamics, you may know more than a little about estrangement. Estrangement can be characterized by a variety of patterns: termination of contact from family members, distancing, loss of connection, loss of affection, and loss of warmth. It is often a pattern that develops slowly, and then it can unfold and persist over years or even a lifetime. Now, estrangement is not necessarily just being bad about staying in touch, nor is it really ever a good thing, but it can be, and we're going to talk about that at the end of this video. So this is not about a family that has good boundaries. This is very much typically reflective of a pattern in which people set down very, very concrete boundaries and they end or minimize contact and closeness because of a range of issues, including conflict, abuse, disrespect, differences in ideology, shame, and judgment. But this isn't just about your family members not calling you back. This is far more intentional. Estrangement is a big topic that takes in far more territory than just what happens in narcissistic family systems. So for our purposes, I am going to take this term on really in a more specific and focused way, and that's from a narcissistic relationship lens. Now, estrangement can be represented by adult children who no longer interact with parents or siblings. In a divorce situation, children, either adult or minor children, if they cut off all contact with one parent but not the other. Estrangement can be, for example, in an extended family, cutting off contact with a specific branch of the family or selected members of the family. For example, grandparents, aunts, uncles, or cousins. There are a range of reasons estrangement may happen, as noted, right to what I just said. But there is something about the narcissistic family relationship that can increase the likelihood of estrangement. Narcissistic parents, or parents with high conflict, antagonistic, difficult, abusive, or toxic personalities, do lots of things that are really going to increase the likelihood of estrangement in adulthood. These things include the fact that they manipulate, especially using guilt. They gaslight. They scapegoat. They use children as supply. They may manifest terrifying rage at children. They may never discuss or share feelings with their children in an appropriate manner. They may shame their children for being different or wanting something different. They may attempt to control them in a very excessive way. Now, basically, all the things I just said are the stuff that happens in all narcissistic relationships, except because it's your parents. These patterns negatively impacted you developmentally as a child, and it's likely they continue to plague you as an adult and can make any kind of adult relationship with your narcissistic parent or family members into a minefield. Parents are uniquely tricky because there is often a more compelling sense of obligation and duty to maintain a relationship with a parent, not to mention all of that guilt they were so good at generating and issuing. Now, estrangement can happen in one of two directions. You distance yourself from them, or they distance themselves from you. And it can happen either way in a narcissistic relationship. Because many people struggle with the idea that narcissistic patterns are not going to change, it's a hard one. It's a hard thing to get your head around. This isn't going to change. Or that they actually believe that they could explain themselves to a narcissistic parent. And their narcissistic parents finally going to say, aha, I get it now, I hear it. People, just like moths to flames, keep having the same discussions, the same arguments, and the same painful diatribes happen without changing anything. And once you recognize that none of this is going to change, and that these patterns are likely going to be in your family in perpetuity, that may lead you to distance yourself from the relationship. Now, estrangement does not actually always mean no contact. It can also mean not staying in close contact with an estranged family. Perhaps you might only call them once or twice a year. It may mean visiting them only rarely. It can mean not staying at their home when you visit. It might mean that you very rarely show up to family gatherings. Like, for example, you might only come when, I don't know, a beloved cousin gets married. But that's about it. But obviously, yes, estrangement can also mean no contact. For some people, there is that dark day when you recognize that the level at which you need to set boundaries for the relationship to become healthy would require such distance. You can see how over time that this is going to result in what looks like estrangement. In fact, some could make the argument that estrangement is a manifestation of exactly the kind of boundaries that are really required to stay sane in a narcissistic relationship. Now, I'm not sure I agree with that. Your narcissistic parent may experience it that way because they don't have the same kind of psychological access to you. But boundaries and estrangement are not always synonymous. In narcissistic family relationships, estrangement can often be a byproduct of control. Narcissistic individuals love to control the narrative. Now, so that means if your politics, your ideology, your choice of partner, your choice of career, or anything else is not in line with their typically very rigid view of the world. And their view of the world obviously is very driven and largely about people serving as their supply, especially their family, and their family making them look good to the world. Because of that, that can result in estrangement. And in a classical trope, this might play out as meeting a partner who is of a different religion or feeling that your political views are wrong. The inflexibility of many narcissists can mean that these issues require that they cut ties. And then, as a cruel and additional hit, they will often then attempt to estrange you from other family members for bringing shame onto the family or for espousing problematic views that don't work for them. And this makes sense with a lot of people in such a politically polarized time. Now, narcissistic hypersensitivity can also be another way that estrangement often occurs in these kinds of family systems. One little slight, one little perceived insult. Hell, sometimes it's just one birthday card you forgot to send on time, and then that's it. They cut off ties. It is not unusual in a narcissistic system for the entire dynamic of walking on eggshells being the fear of honestly, the seemingly arbitrary way that the narcissist just boop, kicks people out. Now, as a child, this would have been terrifying, and so you learn to hold your tongue. But as an adult, it's just knowing that one misplaced word means that you will be iced, sometimes for years. Over many years of working with clients, I have been struck by how many families were estranged, or at least one adult child from a parent or a sibling or aunt, etc., because just one thing was said. And often that thing wasn't that significant, and boom, the narcissistic person in the family system just cut off ties. Now, fear of estrangement is often what keeps people stuck in narcissistic family systems. It can feel overwhelming, triggering, isolating, and really tragic to feel like you've lost your family. And that can really leave a person feeling very alone in the world. In narcissistic family systems, that fear can often be hanging out there as a menace, which can often snap everyone and get everyone in line. And in essence, everyone may just then end up giving in to the narcissist's party line. And then, when you throw in other classical dynamics such as triangulation and trauma bonding and codependency and manipulation and gaslighting by tribe, you may find yourself too confused to step away from the mess and too scared to even speak your mind or just even be yourself. Sibling estrangement is a subset of family estrangement, which bears further discussion. If you have a narcissistic sibling, they may enjoy the chaos and triangulation, and that sibling may foster an estranged family system. That sibling may also be stuck in childhood dynamics that, for example, may leave them wanting to be the favorite child. For example, perhaps you were the golden child and you just sort of move on with your life. But your sibling may not even be a narcissistic personality, but your narcissistic parent or parents may have really fueled and stoked this dynamic. That sibling may now attempt to step in to the hole that you left and attempt to become the new golden child, a goal that they may achieve in part through estrangement. Now, can a narcissist cause estrangement? Sure, of course they can. Why? Because they love triangulation. Now think about it, especially in family systems with adult children. Triangulation, frankly, can manifest as smear campaigns and ongoing scapegoating of a member of a family system, and that can result in other family members believing the lead narcissist. Now, obviously, estrangement can very much be a part of a divorce situation in which the narcissistic parent may engage in a smear campaign or just even, sharing inappropriate sentiments or lies about the other parent, effectively estranging the children from the other parent and even from other extended family members. So estrangement can easily and is quite often weaponized in a family dynamic. The fallout from this can be horrific. In the case of being estranged from your parents, it can feel like a primitive abandonment. And for example, if it was a narcissistic sibling who was attempting to sort of win over the parents as they get older with an eye on the will or the estate or the family, whatever, this motivation actually may be lost on the parents, and the manipulative skill of your narcissistic sibling may leave you in a terrible position of having to try to get through to your parents, who may or may not believe you, especially if your narcissistic and estranging sibling perhaps lives closer to them or spends more time with your parents than you do. As an adult child, this can also be really awful if one parent, even if your parents are still married, is motivated to not only estrange you from the other parent, but from your entire family. And this is a dynamic that can sometimes arise in blended families when a narcissistic or toxic step-parent who has the ear of your parent whom they married may act to estrange you from your own parent. And again, this can often just always follow the money. Go back to money, probate, and wills. But just as often, it is a power and control maneuver designed to give one person in the family more power. Ba-ba, triangulation again. Now, when this involves your adult children, it is deeply traumatizing. Most people will acknowledge that the worst loss a person could endure, if they have children, is the loss of their own child. But to experience an estrangement from your child on the basis of the manipulation of the narcissistic parent, even years after a divorce, can be very unsettling. These narcissistic tactics can sadly be quite successful, and sometimes, frankly, for the narcissistic parent, it's just about the win. That in the end, they have to be the ones that they have to be the one that the kids chose. They choose them, not you. An estrangement from another parent can often be achieved through the usual web of lies and smear campaigns, but it can also occur through financial controls. The narcissistic parent may pay rent for the child, or buy the child a house, or pay tuition, or dangle money as a way to keep them on the hook, and often sell those adult children the story that they would have actually even had more money to give them if only the other parent didn't clean them out in the divorce. That's even when you didn't get a cent, right? What about if you marry into an estranged family or have narcissistic and toxic in-laws? It becomes key that you have a healthy alliance with your spouse, because as a united front and as a supporter for the other, you can support each other through this kind of estranged dynamic. If you are estranged from your family and you meet someone new, please try to shelve your shame and put it away and be transparent. It's a good place to start in any relationship. The one thing you never want to do is ride in like some kind of rescuer and try to fix your in-laws or other people in your partner's family. It's really not your place. And if you do not understand narcissism and narcissistic family dynamics, it can actually be very easy to step into a mess and leave your partner or your spouse feeling invalidated. There is a reason your partner's family is estranged. Respect it, don't judge it, and instead put your efforts and energies on your relationship with your partner. Now, estrangement can obviously raise lots of negative emotions, most notably shame and guilt. In fact, these are often the reason people fight estrangement, even when estrangement may not necessarily be a bad thing to have happen. But the bottom line is that people often will judge you when they hear that you are estranged from your family. They may respond with invalidating comments like, oh, come on, nothing can be that bad. Family needs to stick together, which can really feel horrific if there was a history of abuse in your family. Or you might get the, what's wrong with you? Make nice with your parents. Or maybe you need to be the bigger person and pick up the phone. For these reasons, which can feel like an ugly mess of gaslighting and shame, people may not feel safe talking about an estranged family system. And shame can often isolate us, lead us to self-stigmatizing, and foster some of the same dysfunctional dynamics that we experienced in childhood. Many people do not feel empowered to be open about the fact that they are from or are experiencing an estranged family. Now here's what it is. Here's the bottom line. Estrangement, it's not always a bad thing. If a relationship, a family relationship, is abusive or manipulative or deliberately cruel or characterized by so much eggshell walking it's unbearable, maybe estrangement's not necessarily a bad thing. It can feel much harder if it happens to you, because perhaps a narcissist in the family sort of engineered the estrangement. But in the long term, even if that's how it happened, it may still be healthier in some cases that estrangement's in place. And it may be the only way that the boundaries you need to feel safe can be in place. Now, obviously, the idea that estrangement may be a good thing is not true in all cases. And if the estrangement occurred because lies were shared about you, or it was about some stupid, weak, moralistic pillar that's based on bias and ignorance, it feels awful. It's literally like watching your family members being swallowed into a cult. You may feel you have no way you can reach them. Narcissistic parents and other family members will often use guilt or chaos and crisis as a way of trying to snap you out of that estranged system. Because ultimately it's all about control, isn't it, for them? So even after they pull away, and certainly if you're the one who pulls away, they might actually try to hoover you through chaos, illness, money problems. They may actually dangle an issue about a family member you actually do care about, like a niece, a nephew, or a cousin, to draw you out and suck you back into the estranged family dynamic. And since you are vulnerable to those dynamics, it may work. Now remember, even if you do get pulled back into an estranged family system, it always comes down to being about realistic expectations and radical acceptance. They definitely don't like, certain narcissistic families don't like when they lose control of the narrative. And if you become estranged from them because you chose to cut off, they're probably not going to like that. Estrangement is a confusing and it's a not uncommon dynamic in narcissistic family systems. Many of you out there might say, yep, haven't spoken to my adult children in years, haven't spoken to my parents in years, and it's because of narcissism. If I can only say one thing to you, it's not as uncommon as you would think. It hurts. There's a lot of grief in the process. But in some cases, when you get to the other side, while that hurt may always linger, sometimes, especially in narcissistic family systems, it's not unusual. It may be a tool of control, but ultimately it may not always be a bad thing that it happened. I hope this episode has clarified some of your understanding about estrangement and how it sort of fits in with the world of narcissism. Thanks again for tuning in. Please, as always, if you're new to this channel, hit subscribe to sort of hear much more about the regular content we put out, and then hit that bell if you want to get notifications. Thanks again. Vacations. Thanks again. Vacations. Thanks again. Vacations.